Um, there are general influences one has as a writer. Virginia Woolf, is just the most magnificent writer of prose. To the Lighthouse is just still one of the most stunning pieces of writing I've ever come across. Moby Dick is the same. There are a few others. Anyway, I could go on. There are a few others that generally affect me. But there were a number of novels specific to the writing of my first novel that have nothing to do with the writing of my second, for instance, but helped me get going. And I think this is most interesting to talk about in terms of literary influences. How does one, number one, imitate, but number two, respond to creatively another work? And one does a little bit of both to different kinds of texts. Now, Little Big Man by Thomas Berger, which became a movie and is the story of a white little boy who is taken by a First Nations tribe in the US, and he ends up at the Little Big Horn, the battle with Custer, and it's a kind of picaresque of his life, and it's a marvellous piece of writing, and it's such a piss take of America's perspective or lack of perspective on its own, Aboriginal culture, if you like. It's a wonderful piece of writing. And then Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, when I read it, was so visceral in its prose and so terrible and so visual that I was just stunned, and I just wanted to write like it. And that and Mario Vargas Llosa's book The Way to Paradise about Gauguin in Tahiti, which is written partly in the second person, as only Latin American writers seem to be able to do. You step out, don't you, and you look at her, you watch the fine curves of her body move, blah blah blah. Yeah. Oh, I thought, that's so great, he's so clever, I want to write like this. So, Blood Meridian, Vargas Llosa's second person, I start typing. I must have written the first 60, 70 pages of the novel kind of in this sort of overblown Cormac McCarthy-esque style with little slips into the second person. And then I kind of settled into writing with a little bit of a firmer personal voice. And by the time I got 80% into the novel and was getting towards the close, I realised that the opening of the novel, with all that kind of baggage attached to it, meant that I couldn't finish the novel because I didn't have the style and substance of my own voice firmly enough in place throughout the novel to allow me to finish. So I had to stop. And my wife was very angry with me. She said, don't go back, never go back, go forward, always move forward until you've written the end and then go back. But I couldn't, and I had to go back and rewrite those first 80 pages or so in my own voice, in my own way that I wanted to write it. And then go back to the end, and I could write that big scene in New York that I was talking about where he ends up in the Circus of the Grotesque, which again was rewritten about 50 times in the end, but it allowed me to finish. So one's literary influences work at a number of different levels. It's been called a Canadian heart of darkness, my book, which is annoying because, like I said, it's a sort of anti-heart of darkness, because the dark wilderness and all this kind of nonsense is actually what he finds in the Church of Reason itself, right in the middle of New York in 1900. That's where, the real weirdness is going on. not in the forests of his home where sense is being made, you know, but there amid these crazy freak shows that, you know, kind of Western culture was obsessed with at the time, and, you know, the material cultures of the other being drawn in and placed into these museums. And, you know, so he wanders the Natural History Museum among all the kind of cultural artifacts from Africa and from British Columbia, and, you know, he kind of wanders amongst them. They're all kind of random and pieces here and there, and what the hell do they all mean? Then he walks out and he walks into Central Park and he walks into a Circus of the Grotesque, and there in the middle of the Circus of the Grotesque, chained to the floor, is a wild man. The guy's been covered in fur or something, and, you know, it's just some guy from the Bronx. He's going rah at everybody, and of course he stands there in the middle of this tent, just looking at this guy, going, "What the hell?" You know, I've told you the end of the book. Damn it! And I'm getting carried away.
Yeah.
But yeah, my literary influences were kind of got me going, got me up and running. Most of my influences for the book were, of course, primary historical material, but style-wise, they were those. Not Conrad, actually. I hadn't read Heart of Darkness until I finished the book. I never read it.